Good day, everyone. I'm your moderator, Lee Judge, and welcome to today's webinar entitled Jacada Visual IVR for Insurance Companies. Learn how to differentiate your customer service experience and stand apart from your competitors. Brought to you by Jacada. Our presenter today is Clay Davis, Insurance Practice Executive at Jacada. Today we will discuss how insurance companies are using Visual IVR to drive efficiency and personalization through a higher value digital connection with their customer. Also, how customer service agents can be enabled to provide dual digital and voice collaboration in real time. Following the presentation, there will be a question and answer session, so please feel free to type your questions into the Q&A window at any time during the event. Again, to honor the privacy of our attendees, only your name will appear in the attendee window. So let's begin. Clay, the presentation is all yours.
Well, thank you, Lee, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. It's a real pleasure to have the opportunity to just speak with everyone. For our meeting today, we're going to share a number of things that I think will be relevant. Certainly, as Lee mentioned, we want to talk about how to provide the differentiated experience that your customers are looking for. We're really going to make a strong effort to include a lot of relevant statistics, things from industry analysts that will be certainly speak directly to the crux of the problem. We're going to share some case studies, and as you would expect, there will be a demonstration of these capabilities. So we're going to touch on a lot of points. We'll try to move quickly through this, but my biggest hope for this session today is really that you have an eye-opening experience around where are some of the opportunities in the marketplace for you to help differentiate your company from the competition. With that in mind, let's move forward. The starting point for our presentation today is really around this quote, which comes from Gartner, and it says that 85% of customer interactions are going to occur without the intervention of a human by 2020. In case anyone's doing the math, that's a mere 3 years away. What does that mean? There are some pretty big implications from that that may not be immediately apparent on the surface. The first one is that if you're going to figure out that you must figure out self-service on digital channels. If customer experience is largely going to be determined by self-service experiences, which are 85% in the coming future, if you want to deliver a great customer experience, you cannot neglect and ignore the self-service channels, which traditionally translates into digital channels. Of course, for high consideration purchases and customer engagements, the physical channels, the voice channel, those are always going to be critical. Nevertheless, the company that ignores this 85% factor does so at their own peril. It's absolutely critical that you build into your processes how you're going to deliver a great customer experience, even when you're not directly interacting with that person. Up to this point, most companies have taken the following digital strategy. If we build it, they will come. And we have seen companies invest millions and millions of dollars in things like a mobile app, a web portal, member portal, responsive websites, kiosk, and the list goes on and on. And in fact, those are all valid strategies, and they do accomplish a means to an end, if you will. But there's an additional challenge, which is that, unfortunately, the underlying premise of build it and they will come isn't true. We market, we cajole, we send emails, we notify, we add prompts in our voice IVR telling people, all the virtues of their digital experience, and yet they continue to call into the contact center. Our strategy doesn't work. What we need is some interim measure that helps customers actively pivot into this digital self-service world. Now, probably what most of you are thinking at this point, and the Accenture analysis kind of confirms this, is insurers, whether it's health insurers or P&C or life or other companies, they're not very far down this path of what we call digital intensity. Digital intensity, and actually this is an Accenture term, is really a measure of how customers are impacted by online and mobile and social. Do they use it, and are they impacted by it? That's it. And both health insurers and P&C insurers, frankly, aren't very far down that path. And there's a perception that's underlying part of this. And if I were to reach through the phone and ask each of you right now, probably the very first reaction you would have is, well, our demographic isn't digitally mature. They're not digital natives. The demographic is such that we don't feel like there's going to be a great adoption, or maybe you've even tried it and there hasn't been a great adoption. So in effect, what you're saying is there's no reason to move heavily into this area when so many of our customers, quite frankly, aren't using digital. And we see that, even though we know that in 3 years, 85% of interactions are going to be digital and self-service in nature. For whatever reasons, customers haven't engaged. And the reason is because we've not engaged them where they are. We've not made it easy for them. So let's explore this topic a little bit more. Here's a report by Accenture that basically measures in the healthcare space the digital intensity for different plans. Now, those of you in the healthcare space, you can quickly look at these different groups and associate different demographics with these groups. For those of you on the P&C insurance side, you can probably follow along. I think a lot of the same measures are relevant for you. So let's talk about what each of these groups are. First of all, there's the traditional group. These are the ones who traditionally pick up the phone, write handwritten correspondence. Probably not your best target for digital self-service solutions. And you can see that some of the demographics kind of support that. The second group is what Accenture considers this transitional group. And the important thing there is they will selectively engage for utility, which is to say if they can accomplish something, they will try a digital solution. The third group is the experimental. They actively go out of their way to try things, but they're not always successful. And they're starting to learn the art of blending channels. And then the last group is the digital or the digital intensive savvy group. These are, the ones we traditionally think about, the millennials or the digital natives. These are the ones who not only are comfortable with digital solutions, they actively seek them out. And if you look at the percentages, there's kind of a close correlation between this group and the digital adoption rate for some technologies. Unfortunately, insurance just doesn't have a great adoption for mobile apps, as an example. And so, to the degree that this group is interested in trying new technology, they will seek out these digital solutions. But the rest of these groups kind of take things as they come to them, which really brings us to the central piece of our presentation today is, if you take away the two groups, one on the one end of the spectrum that's probably not ready to engage digitally, and of course we want to transition them into one of the other groups, and if you take away the savvy groups that are already engaging digitally, that leaves an enormous population of people who want to engage in a self-service or digital capacity, but they haven't found the right means to do that. They want to selectively engage if they can provide, if they can execute on a transaction that makes sense, and they are willing to explore and discover if you can do it in a way that makes sense. This represents 80% of the population in the healthcare space, and I would dare guess the same thing's true in the other insurance spaces as well. These are all candidates for digital self-service. Now, if you don't take anything else away from the presentation today, I want you to pause and consider this. 80% of the people are ready to engage in some capacity. The company that figures this out will be head and shoulders above the competition. So when we talk about creating a differentiated experience, if you solve this problem, if you can bring the digital to the customer and not expect the customer to come to your digital, you will have made an enormous leap over your competition. So let's talk about how do you do that. The biggest challenge that we've seen, and this has been going on for years, for most companies is summarized in this slide. We get an ever-increasing number of calls. People are still, their initial orientation for a good percentage of that original group that I just mentioned. They're still seeking some degree of human contact. They view self-service with suspicion as an attempt to keep them from either answering their question or getting on the phone or some combination, and there's a degree of truth to that. all of which drives, increasing agent cost or increasing CSR cost. You have to account for all of these if you want a solution that's going to address the underlying concerns of those customers that we identified in those two groups. It has to be easy to use. It has to meet them where they are. Otherwise, you can't expect these individuals to go find your digital solution. You have to take the digital solution to them. And it needs to help them accomplish a goal. And above all, and the most important thing is, you cannot abandon customers into self-service purgatory. They need a way to be able to communicate to your organization if, in fact, they truly cannot self-serve. And so what we're going to look at today is a product called Visual IVR. It's part of Jacada's Interact platform. Now, we're not the only vendor out there, but we're certainly the leader in the space. And we're going to share just how this product accomplishes each of these things. We're going to talk about that briefly, and then we're going to show you a demonstration of just how we do that. So let's talk about how we do that. So the very first thing to know about Visual IVR is it starts where your customers are. Again, I want to repeat that point. Any self-service solution that asks the customers to go out of their way is going to miss a large majority of the customers, especially in the insurance space. You have to start where your customers are. Well, where are they? They're on the voice channel. They're picking up the phone and they're calling you. About 65% of members of different insurance companies are using smartphones these days. So we want to start where the customers are, and that is on their smartphone. We also want to give them the option, if they need, and this is subject to your business rules and how you decide to make it available, they can still use the voice IVR if they elect to. And then the part that the business is interested in, I can easily pivot them into a digital experience where I can quickly see, what am I trying to accomplish? What are my options here? Which way do I need to go? And then a very simple interface. We're not asking the customer to learn an entire mobile app. We're just saying, if you're calling about this, here's the reasonable next step. Now, an important point to make here is, I've not addressed it, but perhaps some of you are thinking, well, we already have a mobile app or we have a responsive website. True, but what happens when your customer picks up the phone and calls? You're certainly not going to ask them to download a mobile app. We've seen one company try that and they had about a 1% adoption rate. So you need to make this a fairly elegant process. Remember, these individuals are looking for utility, not a digital experience per se. So a very graceful transition into the digital world is required. No downloading of a mobile app. This all happens right on the smartphone, right while the customer's on the call. There's a backside to this, and that is you need to reward the customer with self-service and the ability to speak to an agent when the time comes. So let's talk a little bit about what types of use cases we can support. On the inbound side, you can see right off the bat I can provide quite a bit of information that's relevant for the member. Here, billing information, claims information, and you're going to see all of this during the demonstration. I can execute transactions in a fairly easy manner right here on the digital IVR. What you're also going to see is how we could potentially do something in an outbound capacity to proactively engage customers, thus preventing a call from ever happening. Things like ensuring timely payment of credit cards, of premium. Send a member a reminder with a link to pay their premium and then give them the form right there on their smartphone to do it. Or in the event of a natural disaster, you can help mitigate claims by helping customers prepare or easily engage in the claims management process after the fact. Considering the call volume that happens during national disasters, if you can give a very elegant digital experience on a smartphone to your membership, that can help relieve some of the burden during these high-capacity times. So there are a number of use cases, and we're going to show you some of those in our demonstration briefly. So let's talk a little bit about what the customer journey looks like, because this is really important. I want to really fixate on the parts where your customers are bailing out. You know, you've got this existing population. Where are they falling down? Well, a good percentage of them, depending on demographic and depending on industry, these statistics are not just unique to insurance, but most of the discussions I've held kind of support this, that about 60% of people try some form of self-service and abandon sometimes because they can't do what they want, but sometimes they're just overwhelmed by the options, either on the website or on the smartphone or, you know, in whatever other capacity they engage in the mobile app. Another 40% of people call directly. They can experience a voice IVR, and there's some limited self-service capabilities there, but the reality is they're kind of hamstrung in terms of their ability to truly self-serve. And again, here's that 80% number. A large percentage of your members are ending up in your contact center because they can't self-serve effectively using the mechanisms you have in place. And there are a lot of mechanisms, and each of them in their own time and in their own way contribute to helping the problem, but none of them have solved this dilemma. So now we want to take the next step, which is to say, let's talk about what a visual IVR experience would look like. I'm going to walk you through a demo here momentarily, and at each step, I'm going to show you how the customer can elegantly transition from the voice channel to the digital channel. We're going to talk about how we can quickly authenticate someone, because, you know, if you
I think we may have lost Clay's audio, so we're going to work on getting him back on here in just a moment. Clay, if you can hear me, you should know that we cannot hear you. So I'm going to work on getting your audio back. So if you'll please stand by, everyone.
Yep. I am back.
Oh, you're back? Okay,
yep.
Good.
Yep, sorry, everyone. Dropped my phone call for a moment.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess that's a great attention getter right before the demonstration. So why don't we just go ahead and we'll jump right into the demonstration. For this, I've got a short recording that I would like to use, and that's the easiest way. We're going to focus on the customer experience here on the right. Up until about 90% of the end of the video, I want you to focus exclusively on the right, and then we'll shift our attention over here to the agent experience on the left in just a moment. So let's take a look.
We're going to begin our demo today by dialing the phone number that you see on the screen. This is roughly analogous to a customer finding your phone number on a web page and then dialing for customer service. I've already typed in the phone number, so let's give it a dial. The first thing you're going to hear when I press dial is a traditional voice IVR. Pick up the phone, and then it's going to ask me if I want to try the new visual experience. Then we'll see how things play out from there. For calling DCM Insurance. If you're on your smartphone, press 1 now to experience our new visual support menu, or to hold, press. Thank you. We are sending you an important text message. Please open this message and follow the links quickly get the help you need through our new visual menu. The visual menu will help us collect information to connect you to the best agents. Please don't hang up and follow the link in the text you just received. Please select your reason for calling today. So here you can see with just a few steps, I now have all the common call types that one would expect whenever calling a PNC insurance company. From here, I can make my choice and immediately navigate through all of the different options and quickly deliver elegant self-service experience. Let's take an easy one to begin with, such as ID cards. To ensure the privacy of your account information, please sign in using one of these secure options. As you would expect, in order to self-serve, you need to authenticate. And the beautiful thing about something like visual IVR is we can accelerate that process and increase your authentication percentage rate because we already have information about the caller based on their inbound phone number. In this case, we add one more step, such as a secret question, and in so doing, we're able to authenticate the customer. Please answer your secret question. Because authentication is such a high determinant for self-service, the easier you can make authentication, such as what I just showed you, the higher the likelihood that your customers are going to self-serve. Another benefit of a visual IVR type solution is the ability to graphically display to a customer what you would never be able to do in the traditional voice IVR. As you're reviewing the capabilities of visual IVR, one thing I want you to continue to remember is that all of this started from an inbound voice call. Let's go ahead and finish this request through Request ID card. And you can see that I now have the additional step, the option, if you will, of actually taking a picture and sending that to the appropriate agent inside the contact center when that time comes. So I'll just take a quick picture here. We'll use that photo. And at the appropriate time, we'll see this come back up. We're going to sit on that for now and keep going. I have the option to have the ID card sent to my address on file, or I can change that, something that's not so easy to do in traditional voice IVR. I put my email address in so I can have a copy of it sent to my email, and here you go. I've got the confirmation. So that's a very easy use case. Let's take something that's a little bit more challenging, like adding a driver to a policy. For that, I'll click My Policies. And, of course, I can see all the different policies that I have enforced. I'll go in and select Auto. I can see all the details about that policy. I can see options that I can execute against that. I want to change the driver, or in this case, add a driver. And you can see here I'm at the appropriate screen to do all that. But let's take a different path to that. Let's say that I'm not real comfortable navigating menus, and I want more of a natural language experience. A virtual assistant. Let's go ahead and type into a free-form text field what I'm looking to do. And I want to know how can I add a driver to my auto policy. It. And you can see the Visual IVR is smart enough to interpret that request from the virtual assistant and actually take me right back to the same screen where I would execute this transaction. The beautiful thing about this type of experience is it allows you to support both a menu-driven and a natural language approach, and it synthesizes the two together for a seamless interaction for the customer. So we'll go ahead and we'll enter this information quickly. You can see all the things that you would expect from digital experience, such as a calendar, option, check boxes, drop-down, everything that makes for ease of data entry that's challenging for voice IVR is available here. And I'll say active and progress. An important aspect of a visual IVR experience is the ability to integrate with your back-end systems, whether it's your billing, your policy admin, and your claims management system, and make that information available to the customer. You can see an example of this here. We retrieve the calculations for the policy change and expose this to the customer to see if, in fact, they want to take advantage of this offer. They say yes, and you can see that the necessary transactions have been made and committed in the back end. But to explore a few more options of increasing complexity, let's go back to our main menu, and from here we're going to try the claims process. Now, I like showing this because there's a unique twist here. This is very important, and as you think about some of the things we mentioned earlier in our discussion, any attempt to self-serve needs to account for your customer's predisposition, their mindset, and their journey. In this case, if I'm a customer and I just finished looking at a claim on a website, and I'm trying to self-serve, and I still have questions, it doesn't make a lot of sense to ask a customer in Visual IVR or really in any other self-service solution to go down the same path again. That leads to frustration, and you'll recall that that's the thing that causes customers to bail out. In this case, we detect that the customer was, in fact, on your website. Evaluating that particular claim is something that we can easily do. And so instead of asking the customer if they want to try to self-serve again, we say, we see that you're looking at that claim. Is that what you're calling about? If so, let's quickly connect them to the customer on their channel of choice. You bypass the frustration when you do this, and you support your customer's journey along the way. In this case, I'm not going to contact the agent yet. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the main menu because I want to show you one more example So this is just wanted to reinforce the point that you have the option when you go down this path to account for your customer's journal. You're personalizing the experience based on what they did, not only as a customer 5 years ago or in the last year, but what they were doing in the moment immediately before they called you. So we're going to go back, and instead of saying, yes, I want to look at that claim, we're going to say no. And, of course, I can start a new claim. In this case, I want to view some of our existing claims. Now, because this is a P&C insurance, there's probably not a lot of claims, so we just list them all. If it were healthcare insurance, typically we would filter this based on date, and you've seen how we can have the calendar out. You could filter it based on customer entering the claim number, or again, you can show them all. It just depends on your business decisions. If I click on pending, of course, you can see that the claim is in process. I can still submit supporting documents, maybe a picture that might be relevant. If it's a P&C insurance claim, maybe I've got some additional artifacts, pictures that I need to submit to the agent. Or if I have a paid claim and I want to see the details, I can see all of that. So I've finished with the claim. I've answered my own question for claims, but it turns out I still have one more thing I want to do. I need to pay my bill. And so I go into billing from the home page, and I quickly see all the different policies and the dollar amount associated with each one. Everything looks good until I get down and I see that my new bill is $150, but my last bill was only $122. Here's something that says explain my bill. Let's see what's going on there. Here's the culprit. Turns out that I'm being billed an extra $28.49 due to an accident that occurred. Well, that's interesting. I don't understand that because I have something called accident forgiveness. Now, I don't see anything here about accident forgiveness. So, but here's this assistant piece. Let's go ahead and ask the question there. And I'll type that in briefly. Why did my bill go up after an accident? Seems like a reasonable question. Oh, okay. The insurance company saying that my bill increased even though I have accident forgiveness. Apparently, I've lost my safe driver discount. Oh, okay. Well, why is that? Why did I lose my safe driver discount? It's a great question. And as you would expect, at some point, the virtual assistant is not going to be able to answer every question I've got. And it's going to suggest, based on the rules that you decide, that this is better handled by a representative. So I agree, and I type in yes. And once again, the virtual assistant works in conjunction with Visual IVR to take me to the right screen based on the customer's preferred course of action. Now, I want to be clear. We can bring that virtual assistant into the Visual IVR equation, or we can leverage whichever virtual assistant you're already using, and they can work in tandem together. And in fact, we can leverage all of your digital assets, whether it's an existing web page on your responsive web app, or whether it's a mobile app, or a virtual assistant, or any other digital asset that you have for your customer experience. All of these can be brought to bear on the customer interaction at the time that the customer calls. And as I mentioned earlier, I can connect as a customer to whichever of the channels makes sense for me, and you as a business can decide which of these channels make sense based on your business rules, whether that be the queue depth, the time of day, or maybe even my customer profile. So at this point, I press call, and we would be connected to an agent. And I want to pause here because there's no reason that we want to actually speak to someone. But I do instead want to shift your focus over to what the agent experience would be. At this point, we'll go ahead and click refresh. Everything that's happened here on the phone is made available to your agent here on their desktop. Now, this is one representation of what that desktop may look like, but it's by no means the only way we can use this information. All the data I'm about to show you is available through an API to an integration approach. It can be used inside of your own legacy system, whether that's your CRM system, your billing, or your policy admin still available to help route the calls to the best agent. Here's why that's valuable. A traditional IVR might capture the member ID. You might know a little bit about why the customer's calling. But let's take a look at everything we know now. For this customer, we can see that they signed in with their secret question. They sent us a picture of this ID card, or in this case, it's a picture of a business card. I can see that the customer added the driver, all the information of, reviewing a claim. Everything that the customer has done is visible to me as an agent. Not only can I see the answers that they provided, I can also see the history of what they did with the virtual assistant. Here's the questions that they asked. Here's the answers the virtual assistant gave. And in fact, I have a full accounting of the customer's journey all the way up to the moment when the agent picks up the phone. That is the type of experience you want your members to have. They can do everything that they need inside of the digital experience, all based on the beginning of a inbound voice call. And then if for some reason they do need to speak to an agent, the agent has full visibility into their entire journey. That concludes our demonstration.
Great. So hopefully you guys got a sense of just what a customer experience would be like and how that data, that customer journey is made available immediately to the customer service representative. Of course, as you would expect, all that data is available for audit purposes, for continuous improvement, so that you can continue to refine that experience. And as I mentioned before, there's no mobile app download required on the part of the customer. It really is a real-time experience that gives them all the benefits of digital right there on their smartphone. So let's kind of recap on where we are in terms of what we need. So at the beginning of this session, I mentioned that there were a couple things that really needed to be done in order to secure these intermediate groups, the ones who want to digitally engage but who maybe aren't quite as savvy and who don't necessarily look out for digital solutions. So first of all, you need a checklist like this that says, is the journey seamless? Can I move fluidly between one channel and the other and maintain context? And you saw that today. Can I leverage the best of both natural language and menus? Can I support alternate interaction patterns? Can I start in the voice channel and pivot to digital? Can I start on digital and pivot to the mobile? Can I start on SMS and pivot into the contact center? The platform for Visual IVR can support that. Does it integrate richly with existing platforms? Can it be delivered across multiple channels? And as you would imagine, can it be personalized? And we saw some examples of that today. So just to kind of round out today, I want to just share briefly some of the use cases that we see in the insurance space. Most of these have been deployed in some capacity. On the inbound side, we've got things like billing inquiries and policy changes, requesting an ID card, claims, finding a doctor, benefits and eligibility. Those are all pretty standard. Some overlap between healthcare and P&C there. Likewise, we can support outbound use cases as well, such as payment processing, payment reminders, which we mentioned. You can warn members about lapse in coverage. You can help with claims avoidance, especially during times of natural disaster. And you can support event registration for local community health fairs. Certainly most of these have been built out in some capacity, and would love to kind of explore that if any of these are interesting. One other piece that I want to mention also, in addition to the use cases, is also what does it mean to bring digital self-service to the customer? We've already shown you how it's better to take digital to the voice channel where your customers are rather than build digital solutions and hope customers come. I now want to emphasize why that's so important. When you bring your customer digital experience to the voice channel, you can leverage all of your existing digital assets. Have you invested in a mobile app and in a web self-service portal? Great. Have you invested in a virtual assistant? Beautiful. Do you have an online knowledge base and FAQs that you want customers to reference? Wonderful. You saw today during the demonstration how we leveraged a virtual agent as an example. We've also integrated web and mobile app and knowledge bases into that experience. In effect, you take the entire realm of your digital self-service investment and you expose it better to your customers, and when you need to, you connect your customers to the agent through the appropriate channel and at the appropriate time. So I want to finish up today by talking about, the business value. We spent so much time talking about what does it mean for customers to engage in something like a visual IVR experience. Let's look at what it means from a business perspective. It's two sides of the same coin, right? On the one side, we need all these things from the customer who has a question. We need them to adopt, we need them to authenticate, and we want to have a great experience. But the pragmatic side is we need business agility, and we need to contain customer interactions, and we need to drive a strong ROI. So any solid solution needs to address both halves of this equation. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Having deployed this in a number of organizations and having quite a few best practices and proof points, these are measures that we can kind of point back to across industries and say these are the types of experiences you can expect. What's the mobile smartphone penetration? What percentage of people opt in? What percentage self-serve? Of course, this varies by demographic and by organization and by vertical, but in general, these are the types of things that you can expect. So for this type of call volume with these metrics, you can expect about a 1.7 million call a year savings. That's based on about a $7 per call average. Yours may be lower or higher, depends on the organization, but you can kind of do the math yourself. And then just briefly, a case study for one of our large insurance companies. A number of use cases being implemented, some of which we've seen today. Some of the increases in self-service vary between 20 and 50% depending on the call type, and implementation time frame and ROI of 4 to 6 months, and a number of impressive customer feedback. And that pretty well gives you just kind of a snapshot summary of what some of our customers are saying and what our customers' customers are saying. So just to summarize before we wrap up today, you've got a challenge where you need to provide a differentiated experience. And I've shown you how Visual IVR can help you deliver that differentiated experience. And when you do, you're going to get the reduction in call volume that you expect. You're going to help your customers move down the path of digital transformation. And you're also going to have the benefit of reducing your average handle time. Last point. If you took nothing else away from the call today, I hope you will consider this. There's a very large population in the insurance space of people who fall into the transitional and experimental category. The transitional are looking to selectively engage if you can add value. The experimental are striving, they're trying, but they're not always successful, and they're looking for new ways to engage digitally and physically. The company that solves this problem is going to stand head and shoulders against the competition. And here is one final thought. Right now, there are companies where if you call your health insurance company, you're going to get a Visual IVR experience. If you call your credit card company, you're going to get a Visual IVR experience. Your appliance delivery, your package delivery, your mobile phone carrier. Visual IVR has been deployed in large global enterprises in each of those categories and more. Technology, you name it. Companies are doing this. I urge you to explore this and consider the consequences of leaving 80% of your market untapped for your competition to pursue. That's it for our presentation today. Thank you so much for joining us. I really hope you'll consider the information and, of course, reach out if there's any questions that we can answer. Lee, back over to you.
All right. Thank you, Clay, for your valuable insights on how to differentiate your customer service experience and stand apart from your competitors. Due to the participation level, we're going to answer as many questions as we can from the Q&A window, and those that we cannot answer, we will respond to you directly after the event or via email. So, Clay, I'm going to pick some questions here. If you see some that you want to in the Q&A window, feel free to interrupt and answer any ones that you want. The first one that I'll pull out here says, have the insurance companies used the service just for customer service, or are they also using it to drive new business?
Well, I will say definitely the point of the spear has been in customer service. That seems to be the immediate reaction. But with that said, we are actively engaged with some large organizations in the member acquisition mode. And so I expect within, at least in the insurance space, that within about 6 months you'll start to see things in that arena. In other areas, in other industries, there are some things happening, but it's probably not entirely apples to apples relevant for here. So keep your eyes open, and in about 6 months, I think you'll be seeing some stuff.
Okay, great. The next question here says, how would your service help in a B2B environment?
So that's a great question, and there's a couple thoughts and considerations to take there. First of all is, what are the interaction patterns between the two organizations? Typically in a B2B capacity, the person calling the vendor, if you will, the client calling the vendor is going to be pretty much like what I'm doing on a landline. And so the traditional inbound IVR, visual IVR experience that we just showed you is probably not going to be as relevant. What is relevant and what we're basically deploying is visual IVR on the member portal, which basically takes that same digital interaction and embeds it into the website, so that when a customer decides that they need to contact you, instead of being presented with a list of 20 numbers and hoping they get the right one so that they don't get transferred, they go through a series of short questions there on the website in our visual IVR menu, and then we can initiate the call over to the customer service representative. And here's the key. The customer bypasses all the IVR prompts. So I answer a few questions right there on the screen, which feels kind of natural because I'm used to doing that on a screen. And I go directly into the queue, and I'm connected to the agent as soon as they're ready. No IVR prompts are required. So it's a great question. It's absolutely doable. Just due to time constraints today and our focus on inbound calls from a B2C capacity, we wanted to focus on that today. Great question. Thank you.
All right. Great. So the next question I'll pull here, Clay, says, can IVR replace human touch completely? Is human touch an overvalued concept? I'm sorry. Is it overvalued?
You know, that's the big question, right? I think that's probably, let's put it this way. I think certainly there are types of transactions and interactions that can be completed completely efficiently and effectively in a pure self-service capacity. To say that all human interactions are misplaced, you know, I'm going to leave that to the sociologist. I would argue that personal interactions, of course, have a place, and especially in high consideration purchases. If you're buying your fiance's diamond engagement ring, probably, my guess is that's probably a face-to-face interaction. So no, I wouldn't say that all of them fall into that category. The good news is the vast majority of interactions and transactions can be supported, and then it's up to the business to decide where on that spectrum of touch do they want to be.
Okay, that was a good, safe answer, Clay. I'm sure our audience appreciates that. So we have a question here, let's see, from Kevin. It says, in the demo, was the IVR still active during the visual experience? And do you typically play prompts or just let the customer use the visual interface?
So it's a great question. That experience really kind of depends on a couple things, and we'll go talk technically here for just a moment, sort of. The carrier that the phone that the customer is using has some influence on this, which is to say some of the carriers don't support data and digital simultaneously. And so you probably in that case would not necessarily play voice and digital at the same time, because you wouldn't be able to do that through the mobile phone per se. Now there are some ways that you can embed the voice through alternative methods, but for most of our companies, most of our customers, for those customers who are on GSM networks that support data and digital, they use the voice and the digital simultaneously. But for those customers who are calling in on, let's say, a CDMA phone such as Verizon that doesn't support both of them simultaneously, they show just the visual experience. And then if and when the customer says, I want to talk to an agent, the call is rerouted back to the agent, and it's kind of a seamless experience. A number of our customers are doing that, so it works kind of both ways. Happy to explore that topic and kind of share all the best practices and lessons learned through that.
All right. We're going to just answer a couple of more questions here to respect the time of our attendees, let them get back to their busy days. So the last two questions I'll pull here, Clay. This one says, how to best eliminate customer suspicion of self-service and actually get more people to opt in to a self-service session. So how do you best eliminate customer suspicion?
Well, that's great, and hopefully we spoke to that quite clearly during our webinar today. I think first of all, customers have a couple conditions. First, you need to operate on their schedule, right? Click the call back, send us an email. All those things are basically saying, please, Mr. or Ms. Customer, operate on our schedule. So first thing, any self-service solution that says operate on our schedule, not yours, is really going to be met with some resistance. The second thing is it needs to be fairly effortless, right? If I have to jump through too many hoops, such as download an app, and when I try to use it, oh, it's the wrong version, I have to download it again, and wait, and et cetera, et cetera. Anything that's high effort is going to meet with resistance. So, and then the third thing is you need to be able to accomplish something, right? If all I can do is look at pretty pictures, but I can't really do anything transactional, I can't get questions answered, then that third piece is really going to be a deterrent to me using it. So those are the three things, timely, effortless, and effective. If I can do those three things, I'm going to dramatically reduce the friction.
Are you still there, Clay? We lost you. Okay, I think we lost Clay before our very last question here. I'll wait 1 second because I think we have a question that has been asked a couple of times. So I want to make sure that Clay gets back on so we can answer that question when he dials back in. We'll give him 1 second. Hopefully
he'll. I'm back.
Okay, great. All right, so for our final question here, there's a couple of questions that kind of wrapped into this one, so it's good that you got back on for this last question. And it's a good one. It's fair that it says the questions are basically what differentiates Visual IVR from other self-service options available in the market today.
Sure. Well, Jacada generally supports an all-of-the-above approach. Look, mobile, responsive websites have a place. Voice IVRs have a place. Natural language into voice IVR has a place. Our position is not that you need one at the exclusion of all the others. Our position is that, all the others, with the exception of the voice IVR, are basically trying to effectively beg customers to come use them. Our position is if you want self-service, you need to take self-service to the customer and meet them where they are, and that's on the voice channel. And so you've got your option of I can use voice IVR, or I can use visual IVR, or I can use both of them in tandem. What we see is the companies that use both of them together are getting the very best success and the highest customer feedback ratings. So that's what differentiates visual IVR from all other self-service solutions.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Clay. This concludes our webinar on Jacada Visual IVR for insurance companies. Again, thanks to Clay Davis, our insurance practice executive at Jacada. If there are any questions that we were unable to answer during today's session, we'll respond to you directly after the event. There'll also be a slide deck available, and the replay of the video will be available shortly as well. We hope that you have gained valuable insight into Visual IVR and how you can easily utilize it to enhance your organization's customer service. A replay will be available shortly on Jacada.com. Thank you for attending today. Please visit us again at Jacada.com and have a wonderful day.